it's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hockey News Big Show. I'm your host, Katie Gaus, joined this week by Ryan Kennedy and Gary Pearson, joining us all the way from down under. Gary, happy Saturday to you, but we are recording this on Friday. And as we record this, guys, we have officially reached the quarter mark of the NHL regular season. So obviously it's a fun moment to stop and reflect on what the playoff picture would look like if the first round actually got started tomorrow. So going through the standings this morning, because again, every single night it changes dramatically. Things are very tight on both sides of the East and West. But on the East, we would have Detroit versus Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay facing Ottawa, Carolina facing Washington, and New Jersey facing the Islanders. And then out West, Colorado taking on the Chicago Blackhawks, Dallas and Winnipeg. We know that story. Anaheim. That's right. Anaheim, top of the Pacific, facing the LA Kings, and Vegas taking on Seattle. So there are a lot of names in that mix that we are not used to necessarily saying. And certainly there's a lot of time that can change things. But we'll start things off with you, Gary. Which team not in this current playoff picture is the biggest surprise to you?
Yeah, that's a really good one, especially with some of the big dogs not in the picture at the moment. Like, I mean, you think of Florida. I'm not there yet, just because the Stanley Cup hangover. No Kachuk, no Barkov. So I kind of expected them to have a bit of a sluggish start. Same really with the Oilers. Like, I expect them to turn it on at some point, maybe, but I expected them to kind of have another bit of a laggard start out of the gates. So for me, it's actually Toronto. Like, I knew there was going to be some regression with obviously Mitch not being there, but not this stark of a regression. I thought that they would get better goaltending. I thought that they wouldn't have obviously as many injury concerns as they have had. And defensively, I didn't think they'd be so shambolic. Again, like we've talked about this last week, Chris Tanev's absence is a big part of that. But yeah, I didn't think they'd be so shambolic. So for me, it's the Maple Leafs.
All right, Ryan, who's your guy? That's just surprising that they're not in the dance right now.
I'm going to go with the Montreal Canadiens, and part of it is because they got off to such a great start, and it looked like a team that was carrying that momentum from last year when they got into the postseason into this campaign, and really they just kind of like hit the skids a bit in the past sort of like 10 games or so. So, I mean, nobody's really out of it right now in the East, but for Montreal, with Kirby Dach going out, they've had a lot of sort of close calls or, losses like in extra time, a lot of close games. Sam Montembeault has really not been the goaltender that we saw, particularly in the second half last year. I mean, Jakub Dobeš is basically carrying them in the crease right now. And I don't think that can continue. So I'm not sure what needs to happen for the Habs to turn it around. Obviously, better play for Montembeault would be a great start. But I think this is sort of a nice bit of adversity for them where it's like, okay, well, you're not riding high right now. How are you going to respond when other teams start surging and that playoff race starts to get tighter?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they were a team that even in the early stages when they were finding success and getting those wins, a lot of them were, like you mentioned, coming in extra time. They were winning a lot of games in overtime. And that 3-on-3 dynamic with Caulfield and Suzuki, it's great, but you certainly want to be getting things done in regulation. You factor in the goaltending as well. Like you mentioned, Dobeš doing a great job, but that's not going to be the answer for a long-term success situation, especially if you're looking at being a genuine playoff contender. So they need the goaltending to get moving, to get going. All right, well, I mentioned all those fun matchups of the teams who are currently in the playoff picture. So Ryan, start us off. When you look at all these different potential first-round scenarios of games, which series is the most intriguing to you? Which one would you love to see?
I would kind of love to see Anaheim and Los Angeles, like a battle of California.
Yeah.
We're right there.
New school versus old school. Yeah. I think, like the Ducks have so much great young talent. Leo Carlson has been fantastic for them. They're a big team. They're fun to watch. And they have a Stanley Cup pedigree coach in Joel Quenneville. And then you look at Los Angeles, it's Andrei Kopitar's swan song. You got Adrian Kempe, who's kind of like their new guy in terms of their scoring leader. Quentin Byfield continues to improve as that big center that will essentially replace Kopitar. But you still have Doughty, and then you have Brant Clark coming up. I think it's a very interesting dynamic, and I'm sure, at least for those two teams, they would love the fact that they could, drive to every game in that series, save some of the air miles for later on.
Well, I think the media would love it too, right? You don't have to be going back and forth across the country like you did in the past, Ryan. All right, Gary, which one do you have your eye on?
Well, I don't want to say verbatim, but can I just say ditto? Because I mean, I feel exactly the same. It'd be cool to watch the beach dwellers play each other. I mean, you get Farley at all the games as well. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant matchup. It's really, really compelling and intriguing. Like, you have obviously Darcy Kemper in goal as well against a lot of really young, talented Anaheim Ducks. I think it makes for a really thrilling series. Usually the Kings pride themselves on elite defense, and that would be really interesting against a young upstart team like Anaheim, who's, in all intents and purposes overachieving at the moment. So I think that'd be an awesome matchup.
I would also say Ottawa and Tampa Bay would be my other pick, just because, Tampa Bay, they always play hard in the playoffs, and they have that gang mentality. And then you have Ottawa with Brady Tkachuk, who is the ultimate pot stirrer and a physical force. And you see guys like Tim Stützle stepping up as well. I think that could be like a nasty clash.
As a caveat, I would love to see Anaheim Chicago, which I think was a playoff matchup yesterday or the day before, whatever it might be. But that would be an awesome one, because Quenneville versus his former team. And then you got the number 1 pick and number 2 pick from the 2023 draft, Bedard and Carlson. That would be brilliant too.
That would be lovely. I like that. Oh, yeah, they're so good ones. I know. Well, we need the Florida Panthers to get back into the mix, because I still am holding out hope that we could see the Tkachuk brother first round matchup if they're both healthy, Ottawa and Florida. The other one that is intriguing from a personal standpoint, the rematch between Detroit and Pittsburgh. All those back-to-back years where they battled for the cup, Detroit winning it first time, then Pittsburgh coming out and winning it in their revenge game, and the whole Marian Hossa switching sides. There was a lot of fun there. Obviously, there's still a few guys on the Pittsburgh side who remember that very well. We'll see again. Fun to speculate, but have a feeling that we won't necessarily be seeing maybe a few of these come the end of the regular season. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about one team. I know you guys had mentioned briefly who it is a surprise. Let's be honest, they're not in this picture at all. It's a surprise where they are in the standings. As of right now, they're tied in points with San Jose. That is the Edmonton Oilers. So they lost 7-4 to the Capitals on Wednesday night, and Stuart Skinner was in net for all of it. His save percentage is now down at like a .882. That's amongst the worst in the entire NHL of goalies who have played at least 10 or more games. So, do the Oilers have a goalie problem, a defensive problem? Is it both? And just what is going wrong with Edmonton right now, and how concerned should the fan base be about what they're seeing in the early stages with this team? We've seen this happen with them before, and then they figure it out and they turn it on. But there seems to be maybe a little bit of a different feeling right now. Ryan, what do you see?
Okay, so I know Stuart Skinner takes a lot of flack, and some of it is deserved because he can be wildly inconsistent.
Yeah.
But if you look at his goals saved above expected, he's at like plus 0.2 right now. So he's basically average, right?
Okay.
So it can't all be on him. If you look at high danger goals for and goals against 5-on-5, Edmonton's the worst team in the NHL. They scored 9, they've given up 30. The next worst is New Jersey at like 11-27. So clearly the defense is hurting.
Yeah.
And it's eye test as well. When you watch the Oilers play, they give up a lot of grade A chances. They give up a lot of bad rushes. And
Okay.
sometimes Skinner can bail them out or Pickard, and oftentimes they can't. I think in terms of like high danger save percentage, Skinner's like, again, he's not bad. He's kind of average. He's certainly not one of the best in the NHL. But
Yeah.
I think in a lot of cases, Edmonton's defense is not putting him in a position to succeed.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because he's not good enough of a goaltender to always bail them out. We've seen in the past 2 Stanley Cup runs, Skinner has had brilliant stretches and then he's had awful stretches.
Mhm.
So I think mostly I'm going to put it on the defense because
Okay.
they're not helping their goaltender be at his best.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of inclined to think the same thing. I would say probably like half of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think it's equally shared. Skinner isn't all he has to be really for that team is average. I mean, he
Yeah.
needs to be average or above average for that team to succeed. And defensively, they're just so poor. I mean, transitionally, they're poor. They're giving away a lot of pucks at the blue line. They're having trouble in transitions in their own zone. They're a mess. They're allowing, as Ryan kind of talked about, they're allowing the second most expected goals in the league. So you can't just say, oh yeah, it's just Skinner's fault. He takes a bad rap, but at the same time, I am slightly concerned by him not showing up potentially in the big moments when his team needs him the most.
Right.
So that's for me is problematic. But their defense is terrible recently. Bouchard, he takes a lot of flack, and so he should. And I don't think that he's a Canada caliber. I know obviously he scores a lot of points. He's offensively inclined. He's brilliant and talented in the offensive zone. But sometimes defensively he's haphazard, and it's systemic of their team right now. And until they sort it out, I can't see them improving. Again, they usually kick into high gear around Christmas time, so stay tuned. But
Right. When you hear players, after games talk about, oh, if we score 4 goals or have 5 goals, we should be winning a hockey game. And that's fair and that's true, but that doesn't mean that the goaltender is just the only one that's responsible for preventing what's happening on the other side. And I think that's kind of a good testament. Yes, they have offensive firepower. And Stuart Skinner is not supposed to be Andre Vasilevsky, right? Like if you're not supporting him in a way that he can just be successful, then you obviously don't know who your goalie is and you don't know what's made you successful in the past. All right, let's talk about the Winnipeg Jets. They gave prospect Brad Lambert's representation permission to find a trade partner, according to Frank Saravalli. So he's got 1 goal in 4 games this season. It's obviously just not working, so the team is willing to let him find a place that maybe it could. So Ryan, kick us off. Where would Lambert potentially be a good fit? And at this point, with the sample size that you've seen from him as a player, do you think he has the potential to still become a top 6 forward?
I mean, honestly, like the best fit is probably like the KHL at this point. Brad Lambert's really interesting because he came on the radar pretty early. He had a lot of success early on. He had a great origin story, right? He's like the Finnish kid with a Canadian name. His uncle is Lane Lambert, the coach. And so, a lot of us were paying attention to him early on. And, he sort of moved around and, sometimes he would be brilliant. Sometimes he wouldn't show up at all, particularly, at the international play. So I think it's just like that consistency was never there for him. I mean, he does have some offensive gifts, but I think at this point, like it's been long enough where it's like, I think we know what Brad Lambert is. And it's somebody that, is just not, or has not shown that he should be an NHL regular and certainly not top 6 because, that comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot of ice time. And I don't see a team out there right now that is tragic enough to be like, okay, well, whatever, we'll try anything. Like maybe if this was like an expansion year, maybe an expansion team would be like, hey, who knows? Maybe if we give him 23 minutes, well, not 23 minutes a night, but maybe we give him 20 minutes a night and power play time, we can unlock something. And there's just no team like that.
I've got a tragic enough team. I think is the Calgary Flames tragic enough. Do you think? Do you think
I don't even think they're tragic enough. Yeah,
it reminds you of like was it Lambert the sheepish lion? I think he's I agree. I mean, he hasn't exactly lived up to expectations, and it has been a long time. And I think that the trajectory just doesn't feel like it's gonna increase anytime soon. He does, I think, need a new home to try and get a little bit of resurgence, a little bit of a shot in the arm, because you never know, a new environment can potentially do that for someone. So I'm knowing the Calgary ownership like I do, potentially that he'll go there. But the other kind of potential suitors would be maybe Boston and Pittsburgh. But again, as Ryan says, I don't think that either team would be inclined to take him on based on his current perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, right now nobody's necessarily wanting to go to the KHL because they've got attack dogs dropping the pucks on the ice. So
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone saw that video.
I didn't.
They had an attack dog come out to drop the puck, and he was just going crazy at all the players.
Wow.
It's not the most stable geopolitically either.
Best idea. Yeah, there's other reasons too. But yes, I guess we'll see what happens to Brad.
Maybe
Brad,
Switzerland instead then.
Finnish Brad. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Elliotte Friedman have reported that the Ottawa Senators are looking to hit a home run on the trade market. We've seen some of the big swings they've had success with Dylan Cousins. They obviously brought in Linus Ullmark. You've got Claude Giroux. They had Jacob Chickering and Alex DeBrincat at one point, then traded them away, but those were other big moves. So, Gary, what's kind of a scenario that you could see making sense for Ottawa to be able to swing a home run trade?
Yeah, I mean, at this juncture, I think they definitely have to hold fire. I mean, I think that the team is perfectly poised at the moment. I can see potentially if they start to decline or unravel, there might be a potential for a home run swing. But at the moment, like, I just don't see it. Like, they're pretty deep. They're stacked on the right side of the fence. Like, I was thinking maybe potentially Rasmus Anderson might fit, but they have a lot of puck moving defensemen. They're stacked on the right side. They've got like good young defensemen on the right side as well. A couple first round draft picks. So I don't see it happening at the moment. I mean, I like potentially see them getting a fourth liner, but that's not exactly a home run swing. It's more like a bunt. So I feel like they're good. I feel like they're perfectly poised. You gotta wait till Tkachuk comes back once he's done his podcast, renditions, and get him back on the ice. And see where they stand. I think they are, and again, like, they have some flaws that I think will correct themselves. As you talk about Linus Ullmark, like, he's just not been good enough this season, and for large stints of last season. So I think they're going to wait to see, hopefully, for him to turn things around, get their captain, soul, and heart of the team back, and go from there. But at the moment, I don't see a home run swing coming.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I first of all, they're capped out. So any trade that they would make would have to be like a straight up hockey trade, which is not super easy to do. But also, if you look at Ottawa right now, even with Brady Tkachuk missing as much as he has, top 10 offense, top 10 defense, top 10 power play. The only thing they lag in is that their penalty kill has been horrible. So, you talked about a bunt, Gary. If they did anything this season, assuming everything sort of stays as is and Tkachuk comes back to the lineup and plays the way we all expect him to, maybe you get a penalty killer at the trade deadline, to just sort of bolster yourself back there. But, I just don't know how much they can do right now.
Yeah. It's interesting too, like when I was doing all the Stuart Skinner digging for Stuart, and here I am just looking up numbers to show he's not playing well, when we all know that's not just the case. But right down there in the same conversation were Linus Ullmark's numbers. So again, there's a little bit more of an expectation, I believe, on Ullmark than there would be from Skinner. So there's definitely a concern there from an Ottawa standpoint that he needs to get to a little bit of a higher caliber. Ultimately, I think Brady Tkachuk coming back will have a settling impact on the team. Maybe that improves some of those areas you guys just mentioned. But they need Ullmark to be. They need him to be a little bit of an all-star in a certain way for them to be able to find success.
Like they allow like the eighth most goals per game, but they allow the fewest expected goals. So again, when you're talking about Linus Ullmark, that has to fall on his shoulders. A lot of it too, and that's troublesome.
Right. So those are definitely different metrics than when we were talking about what's going on for Stuart Skinner. All right. Well, we were talking about all-stars. Well, so far, Islanders rookie defenseman Matthew Schaefer is certainly looking like one. He has now been added to the IOC's long list and entered the Olympic drug testing protocol, which means that he can officially be eligible to make Team Canada should they feel that there's room for him, but we all know that there is just no room for anybody really on Team Canada. We'll talk about that with the forwards here just in a second. But thoughts, Ryan, on Schaefer being added to this list, and are there realistic chances that you see him earning a spot on Team Canada?
I love it. I think it's well deserved. And I mean, he's basically going after one spot. If we think about Canada's Four Nations team, and assuming everybody is healthy, at the time, I don't think there's a lot that they need to do back there, especially because we saw at the Four Nations what Thomas Harley can do on an international stage. That was like a great, pleasant surprise for Team Canada. But with Matthew Schaefer, I think like, if he keeps it up like this, I think you should bring him. Even if he doesn't end up playing, just the experience of being there would be so fantastic for him. And yeah, it's the biggest stage in the sporting world, the Olympics. But like, look at this kid when he does interviews. Like, he has like so much poise. He has so much fun with it. Like, he's so comfortable in his own skin. And then obviously on the ice, he's like a revelation. So I compare it to Drew Doughty when he went to the Olympics in 2010 as a 20-year-old. And granted, yeah, Schaefer's only 18. Doughty was in his second NHL season as a 20-year-old. But, Team Canada believed in him. And ironically, at the Four Nations, Doughty was telling us about that experience. And early on in the Olympics, Steve Yzerman kind of pulled him aside and was like, hey, we brought you here to play your game. Play your game, Be that guy that's going to rush the puck up the ice. And Matthew Schaefer, I feel like you wouldn't necessarily have to tell him that. I think he's so confident right now that if he got into a game, he would be wheeling the puck up the ice. He would be breaking up plays in his own zone. And he would have the confidence to know that he could hang with the best players in the world. So will it happen? I don't know. But the fact that it's a possibility is very exciting.
Yeah. I agree. Like by now, he already knows he can hang out with the best players in the league. Like he merit based, he goes. Like if we take the rookie conversation out of it and say, okay, he's 18 years old. Yeah, I understand the implications of that, but you take that out of it, and he's good enough to go. And I think as you find a phenom like this, and to be able to have him experience that stage at this age, it only serves you well for the future. We have enough depth. Canada has, shouldn't say that, so biased. Canada has enough depth to be able to bring someone like him, and maybe not play him much at all, if at all. But at the end of the day, like someone like him, I think he needs to go. How well he's acclimated to the NHL. Like people thought, oh yeah, he might get a 10, 15 minutes of ice time. He's playing 22 minutes of ice time a game, and he's dominating.
Yeah,
for the most part. So yeah, I'm on board. I think he's there, and I think that the Canadian ownership and the coaching team will be fully on board with it.
It's okay, Gary. You're allowed to say we when you talk about Canada. I'm gonna say we when I talk about USA. So we got our sides here on this podcast. No worries.
I like it. Bipartisan journalism. I love it.
Yeah.
They say our takes can be strong, but when it comes to rooting for our countries, it's fair. We can all make it work. All right. Let's keep the Canada talk going, because we've got quite a few players right now who are absolutely on fire. We've got Bedard, Celebrini, Scheifele, Tavares, Suzuki. So many good Canadian forwards in the NHL right now, but very limited spots on Team Canada. So when you think back to the players who were on the Four Nations squad, who maybe is sticking out as a player that shouldn't potentially be on the Olympic team to make room for one or more of these guys, Gary?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, obviously the coach is Cooper, so he's Tampa Bay inclined. Braden Point's not exactly playing that well. I mean, he should be guaranteed going to the Olympics, but he has 3 goals in 20 games. at what point do we say, okay, we need an exclusion to allow for someone that's a young whippersnapper to come in and show the world what he's worth, and we've already seen it with Celebrini and Bedard. So, and the other one is Cirelli. I mean, he's been a staple. He's there. He's always been there, but like they're not playing that well right now in Tampa. Of course, John Cooper is probably going to bring them along with him, but you also have Seth Jarvis, you have Konechny, and at what point do one of these players are they superseded by a young phenom like Bedard or Celebrini? So I think that there's room for one of them. I'm not necessarily on board with bringing Schaefer and Celebrini. I think maybe Schaefer and Bedard. I know there's not too much of a difference. It's fairly negligible, but Bedard's maybe a year more experience. But that's the kind of way I would take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking like based on foreign nations, I think Travis Konechny is probably in trouble. I mean, he is playing well this year, but he wasn't much of a factor in that tournament. And because we have so many players, particularly centers, that are playing so well, like a Nick Suzuki, who you could play as your fourth line center, and he would give you tremendous value because he is so good on both sides of the puck. And then I actually favor Celebrini for the same reason that in terms of two-way play, he's a little more advanced, and we've seen him do it before. The other thing is Celebrini went to the World Championship for Canada, and they remember that. They remember that stuff. Team USA remembers that kind of thing as well when they're picking their rosters. Who gave up some of their offseason to play internationally. And Celebrini, of course, played with Sidney Crosby at the World, so he's already got that little check for him. But it will be interesting because, it's an expanded roster, so you got a little wiggle room there. And also we got to think about injuries, right? A guy like Mark Stone is on fire for Vegas, but he's also been hurt, and, we've seen that happen a lot, unfortunately, with Stone. So hopefully he's healthy, but you kind of never know. So I think, Suzuki, for me, like Suzuki and Celebrini would be like the first two in, but it'll be very interesting to see who's available and who's not once we actually get to roster time.
Yeah, and then you also factor in, again, the discussion about, every guy that's on this team needs to be there for a specific role. It's great to have guys that are hot, guys that are producing, but in this kind of a tournament, every single person needs to have a role when they're out on that ice. Are there players in that list that, while they produce, are just not going to be effective if they're maybe put into a bottom six situation, if they're put into a role-playing situation? So something else to consider. Again, Canada and USA in particular both have plenty of good problems on their hands. And it'll be continuously interesting to see how things play out. All right, let's get into one quick conversation in the college circuit. We're talking about Gavin McKenna. His first season at Penn State hasn't necessarily gone as well as he probably would hope so far. Struggling to find the same production that he did in the WHL at the college level, which I think is expected. I mean, what he was doing in the WHL was ridiculous, playing more. But as a result, this has caused a lot of people to start having that conversation online. Like, oh, wow, is he what we thought? Is the hype real? Is he the undisputed number one pick in this upcoming draft still? So, Ryan, is he? And if he isn't, if this is maybe making people think a little, or just to play devil's advocate, who else should be in the mix for that number one spot?
Okay, so right now I still believe he's number one. If it wasn't going to be Gavin McKenna, for me, it would be Keaton Verhoff, the defenseman playing at the University of North Dakota, who also jumped from the WHL to NCAA this season. But I would say this, wait until the World Juniors. Right? Because Gavin McKenna is going to have a very crucial role on Team Canada. He's going to be playing against other teenagers instead of, playing against 22, 23-year-olds in the NCAA. Until last night, when he was passed by Vaclav Nestrasil, the Chicago Blackhawks first rounder, who's obviously a year older than him, Gavin McKenna was tied as the highest scoring freshman in college. So it's not like he's like struggling. I think he's just not putting up the numbers that we necessarily expected. And one of the reasons, Yeah, for his standards.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I think so is because the NCAA is so much harder this year. Like,
Yeah.
there's
So
not a
physical
lot of
too.
guys
Yeah.
running away, right? Like,
Yeah.
other than like the Plant brothers at Minnesota Duluth, and then ironically Charlie Serrato, who plays with Gavin McKenna at Penn State. We're not seeing guys put up like insane numbers because I think you have all these CHL players coming in and making games more difficult. I would also say that the last 4 games Penn State has played were against Michigan and Michigan State, the number 1 and 2 teams in the country.
Good.
Okay. Penn State's still number 5 right
Yeah.
now. So I think that, he is producing, not maybe the level we thought in the preseason, but he's also scoring more than James Hagens is at Boston College. And,
Okay.
James Hagens, again, an older player than McKenna, who had experience before with Boston College. So, I know people like to talk and they like to think about these things. And I know I expected more offense from McKenna, but I also expected more offense from a lot of players in general in college. It just so happens that it looks like it's a lot more competitive than I had anticipated. So I will say, like, wait until the World Juniors. If like Ivar Stenberg from Sweden drastically outplays McKenna, then I think you say, like, okay, well, maybe it's Stenberg. And then, Verhoff, if he plays for Team Canada, if he's dominant, then maybe you say, okay, well, maybe that's a possibility. But I want to see what McKenna does in a Canada jersey, because if he puts up like 16 points in that tournament, I don't think we're having this discussion again on, January 7th.
And plus, there's also always the conversation with freshmen in college hockey in particular about getting through that first half of the season. What do they look like after Christmas? I've seen this so many times where guys start to figure it out and they go on a total run after they get back into that second half of the season. So totally possible for McKenna as well. But I like the way you put that into context, Ryan, because certainly he's only struggling in the sense that he's not putting up insane numbers that he created that expectation for himself, but it's a good thing. What have you seen, Gary? What is your, kind of a take on, McKenna's start in college?
Yeah, I think he's got a little bit of wiggle room there. I think like the top end of the draft prospectively doesn't look that high end. I mean, comparatively to other years. So I do think he has some wiggle room. I think he needs a bit of a time to adapt to the college game. It's more robust, it's more physical. He's got less time. It's more of a big boys game. So I think just give him a little bit of a lead, give him a little bit of time. I'm interested to see, kind of get your thoughts as well, Ryan, on Tynan Lawrence, dynamic two-way center. Injuries have plagued him this year. I know he's fairly highly touted. Do you have any kind of initial impressions on how he's looking, or like before the injury, I guess?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is I keep waiting for him to get back into the lineup with Muskegon. He's only played 2 games, and I know I talked to Muskegon, I guess a week or 2 ago, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't know. Like, he's in a non-contact jersey, but I guess he's still working through it." I know he had a setback at one point because he was out, then he played 2 games, and then he was out again. I'm high on Tynan Lawrence. I think because there's such a lack of centers in this draft,
right,
we could see him go potentially top 5. But we need to see him on the ice. He was great last year. He was the playoff MVP in the USHL. But and I liked him in the summer at Canada's Halinka camp. But yeah, we gotta see some game reps.
Yeah. Like it. All right. Well, Gary, one of the reasons we love having you here is because it allows us to get into some sports betting talk. So let's dive into the BetMGM playbook, and we'll start things off with a discussion around the Colorado Avalanche. Gary, what are kind of you seeing from them in terms of expectations, winning games, and teams that maybe have a chance to be able to beat them in the long run? What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just an incredible run. Like, obviously, they've lost 1 in regulation, few overtime setbacks, but it's a bit of a crapshoot in 3-on-3 overtime. Having said that, they have the skilled players to win those types of games. So I think that the fortune hasn't been going their way in the 3-on-3 overtime. It's starting to come around. Actually, they've won 7 in a row. They've won, so they are flying. They have a great tandem in goal right now. Like, Blackwood's playing great. They've got Wedgwood back in the team as well. Like they're Wedgwood's actually the number one at the moment, right? So
Right.
it's an incredible transformation. Yeah, and so who knows until he falters, they're gonna ride with him. It's a great setup. I mean, like McKinnon's the MVP favorite, the Hart Trophy favorite. Makar's running away with the Norris Trophy. They have an embarrassment of riches. They're well coached. They're great defensively. Their statistics are phenomenal across the board. Sometimes you hope that the bubble won't burst, but
Right.
the issue for them has been the first round of the playoffs. Like they play, so I mean, first off, they play Nashville and Chicago in the next two. Potentially, Chicago could be a letdown game. They were 2-2 against Chicago last year, so they won 2, lost 2. So that could potentially be a letdown game with how well Chicago is playing. Obviously, the worry always for Colorado is in the first round when they probably will play either, Dallas or Winnipeg. So
Sure.
that could be potentially the banana skin, right? If Ottinger gets hot, and Dallas is playing really well too right now. So, but aside from that, like they are the class of the NHL. They're head and shoulders above the rest at this early juncture. So we'll have to see if that perpetuates. But right now, they're a juggernaut.
Yeah. How about let's talk about another team that certainly finds success in the playoffs, but has had a little bit of trouble getting over the hump. The Carolina Hurricanes, right? Oh, have they
Mhm.
done enough, in your mind, to start to show that potentially they have the opportunity to make it past that Eastern Conference Finals, or are you still feeling like there's just something missing from this group?
No, I think that they have. Like, I mean, they've done really well. They're top of the Eastern Conference without. I mean, I think Anderson's played 11 games. He hasn't played well since coming back from injury. Like his statistics are pretty swollen. So he's not played that well, but they're still atop the Eastern Conference. They have the worst power play in the league, tied with the good old Calgary Flames at 12.5% efficiency. So that's real impoverished. Now, are they doing enough? Yeah, absolutely. For what they've been doing, like despite the fact that the aforementioned reasons that I've said, yeah, they're at the top of the Eastern Conference. Now, obviously, they have to exercise their Florida Panthers demons if the Panthers can sort themselves out. But
Yes.
now that Barkov is injured, they have some calluses in the playoffs. They've potentially got some learning lessons behind them. They've been to a fair few Eastern Conference Finals in the last 3 or 4 years. So I think that they're battle tested, and I think that that's going to serve them well. And I think that they have a really good chance of actually finally clearing that final Eastern Conference hurdle this year.
Yeah, well, and certainly the Florida Panthers, we know, day by day, they just keep getting more and more injured. Then you go out to Vegas, you've got the Golden Knights who are struggling to figure out their goaltending situation. Before we run out of time, is there, if you had to go between Florida and Vegas in terms of a team that you feel a little bit more confident with in terms of what they look like, who would you be choosing?
Really good question. I think that Vegas is treading water. Schmidt's actually 9-1-2 right now. I mean, his statistics are actually really good, surprisingly. And they
Mhm.
get Carter Hart in December 1st, so they're definitely going to be okay. This team's going to go get better and better, I think, as the season goes on. And the same with the Panthers. They're going to get better and better. Like Marchand's on pace for like 55 or 56 goals. I mean, his previous best was 39.
Right.
I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. And what is he? I don't know. How old is he? 37, 38 years old or whatever he is.
Mhm.
So that's an incredible story. And they're going to get Kachuk back soon. The Panthers are going to be there. I think that's inevitable. Whether they finish second in the conference or eighth in the conference, I don't particularly think it matters for them as soon
Yeah.
as they get into the postseason. So I have confidence in both teams.
Right. I like it. Well, a reminder, for over 75 years, the Hockey News has been the ultimate hockey fix. And now you can get 12 issues delivered straight to you with stories, stats, a bonus issue. And the holiday season is coming up. So make sure to head over to thn.com to get in on all that action. Gary, thanks so much for all that great stuff from the BetMGM playbook. Let's dive into some rapid fire real quick before we wrap up our show here. Ryan, kick us off. Who should
Mhm.
the three goalies for Team Canada be at the Olympics?
All right. Well, I think Jordan Binnington has to be there because he turns into Mariano Rivera when he's got a Team Canada
Yeah.
jersey on in high stakes situations. Aiden Hill, based on health, obviously. And then I think maybe you go with Scott Wedgwood at this point. Just go with somebody who's hot. They don't have a lot of great depth, and obviously Montembeau's not playing well. So yeah, why not Scott Wedgwood?
All right. Gary, what do you think?
I'm on board with Logan Thompson. He's a Vezina frontrunner alongside Hellebuck, playing absolutely phenomenally. Kemper, I think you got to take him. Kings, he's just been playing so maybe particularly not well this season as well, but last season it was absolutely amazing. And Binnington. I mean, Binnington, he can potentially steal us a gold medal again. We didn't outplay the U.S. in the Four Nations final. Binnington was there. He played so well in the final when we needed him. And I hope he can steal us another gold medal like he did Ovechkin's commemorative puck.
Yes, stuffing that puck in the pants and sneaking away with gold medal in his pants as well. I guess we will see. I like the Logan Thompson, and I've heard a lot of conversations about like you give Binnington the first game to start things off because of the history that he has and just sort of who he is for Team Canada in the net. But there's a shorter leash there, and if Thompson is one of the goalies that gets brought with the way he's been playing this season, he's certainly not a bad two option to have for Canada. All right, we'll keep the goalie conversation going here a little bit. Calgary Flames backup goalie Devin Cooley said after a game when asked about how he kind of stays in the zone, he tells himself this in his head. He said, "You ground yourself. I just say, nothing matters. Nobody cares. We're all going to die." And he says it over and over again. So, I mean, as if we didn't already know that goalies are a special breed. Gary, can you think of a weird goalie quote or a great weird goalie moment that you remember throughout hockey's history?
I think a equally bizarre and exquisite character is Dominic Hasek. And he once said, "Only Dunlop has seen more rubber than me." I love that one. I think that's a great one.
That's awesome. Nice. Ryan?
For me, I got to go with the king of all quotes, Ilya Brizgalov. Yes. I mean, there's so many, right? Why you have to be so mad? Talking about the punishment for killing tigers in China. The galaxy being so humongous.
Big.
Humongous.
Big,
so big. I mean, what a treat Ilya Brizgalov was.
He really was. He was a quote machine. I think he at one point said something about he's not really scared of anything except for bears.
Yes, the bears live in the forest.
The bears
so it's okay.
And I'll never forget the Winter Classic when they followed the teams around and he brought his thermos because he wasn't playing in the game and he was not thrilled about it. So he made a whole big deal about having his thermos on the bench. Yes, the correct answer to that, probably for most people, would be Ilya Brizgalov. I love it. Good stuff for both you guys. Okay, last one before we wrap things up here today, because we are, as we talked about earlier, all these California teams that are exciting now and that are in the mix. Two of them are in a playoff spot right now. So, Gary, kick us off. Which California team of the three is going to be the best in the next 3 years? So LA, Anaheim, or San Jose. 3 years from now, who are we going to be looking at?
Okay, I'm fading LA. Kopitar's gone. Their reign's over. Whatever reign it was. Their cups were brilliant about 10 years ago. But anyway, I'm going to Anaheim. I love their core. I love their youth. Love their energy. Love their size. There's not too much I don't like about him. Even Dostal, like he's playing pretty well. A 2018, 2019 draft pick. I'm on board with Anaheim marginally over San Jose.
I'm with you. I think that San Jose still has a little bit of roster building to do. I think the Kings could potentially win the Stanley Cup this year. But I agree with you. Like, this would be the end with Kopitar retiring, and then they'll need a little bit of time to rejig. But Anaheim, they're just on the ascent. And I mean, we talk about somebody stealing an Olympic medal. Lucas Dostal with the Czechs would be somebody to keep an eye on because he can shut her down.
I love that. We love it. We love a good Czech goalie story, just coming in and ruining the fun for everyone, as we've seen them do so many times at the international level. Particularly Canada had that issue. Was it at the World Juniors recently?
Checkmate.
Yes. Okay. We love it. Good stuff. I agree with you. I think that San Jose is, if we were talking maybe 5 years down the road instead of 3, maybe that's a different conversation between them and Anaheim. But certainly we can all agree that Anaheim and San Jose are both going to be massively enjoyable to watch over this next 3 to 5 year stretch. And maybe
what a rivalry, hey? What a
I
rivalry that
love
would
it.
be.
Yeah, I think we're going to see it. Good stuff. All right, guys. Awesome things as always, as we are at that quarter mark of the NHL season. Lots to look forward to. The Olympic conversations will continue to heat up as rosters are officially need to be on December 31st, I think, is that special date. Maybe we dive into Team USA a little bit more on our next show. But that does it for this episode of the Hockey News Big Show. I'm Katie Gaus with Ryan Kennedy and Gary Pearson. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you all next week.